We can reconvene. So I'll have the legal advisor elaborate on the 4 legislators who have been disqualified, and we'll talk about their previous voting and its effect. Thank you, Chairman. Under Rule 17 of the LegCo Ordinance, it elaborates under what circumstances when there are vacancies arising and how it will affect the legislature. I will be quoting from 17 bracket 2. It mentions a few different scenarios. It refers to a vacancy, or if there is a question of validity of an election, and if a legislator's eligibility has any inappropriateness. So we have the different subclauses, and if one of the subclauses arises, it will not affect the validity of LegCo procedures. So that is the information regarding the LegCo ordinance. Thank you, Chairman. So could we resume our meeting? So what does inappropriate mean then? Legal advisor? So in the Chinese, it talks about the eligibility. In English, it reads the defect of the eligibility of a person to be a member. So that is the English reading of the ordinance. So if we are referring to the ruling, according to the court's ruling, the court regarding the 4 people and their eligibility as a LegCo member, the ruling says that they have lost the eligibility of as a councillor. So this would come under 17 bracket 2, the issue of eligibility. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Hui Jifeng. I'd like to continue to explore and have the legal advisor elaborate on clause 17, where we talk about the vacancy in the membership. And if you look at the 3 subclauses, it talks about the vacancy and whether it affects the validity of LegCo procedures. It talks about the proceedings of the council and whether they cannot convene and whether it's not valid. But it doesn't talk about previous meetings, the votes that they have cast. Do we need to recast the votes? Are their votes valid? Do we need to go through our procedures again? That doesn't seem to be referred to in Clause 17. Thank you, Chairman. In my experience reading the ordinances, why we have this clause in the LegCo ordinance, it is because we need to safeguard the procedures of the council. That is, if in our past decisions, if there are problems found afterwards, we need to safeguard the validity of the previous proceedings, and we don't want any query arising out of that. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Leung Kai-Cheung. Well, the legal advisor talked about the proceedings not being in question, but if in a motion, if there's just a difference in 1, 2, or 3 votes in the outcome, and if you do not count those disqualified legislators' votes, does that mean the outcome can be changed? Well, you need to check if, as the legal advisor has said, every vote cast in the different motions, you have to see whether those 4 people, their votes that have been cast, would that affect an outcome? Well, I think you have your reasons, but when those 4 votes can affect the outcome of a motion, you need to check whether there are any retrospective effects. Thank you, Chairman. Well, regarding Clause 17, I had already explained and given my opinion. Now, regarding Mr. Leung Kai-Cheung's scenario, if such a scenario arose, the decision, the voting outcome was made according to rules of procedure, and the chairman had already made an announcement that it was a LegCo decision, and if you read it together with Clause 17, our proceedings are not affected. Now, if individuals feel that the outcome is questionable, then it should not be debated in LegCo. There are other avenues to follow up. Mr. Kongzhen, rule of procedure, I'd like when the legal advisor, you just providing opinion. Clause 17 just says that a vacancy in the membership of the LC does not affect its power to transact business. Well, first of all, we never had this precedent. In the last year, in the FC funding applications, we had 45 billion funding applications, and now we have never had this precedent. Just now the legal advisor had just given an opinion. Chairman, you need to understand that even though the chairman had made ruling, and the council chairman had also ruled that Ms. Lau Xiulai's swearing oath was valid. So I would like you to have it on record. Anything to add? No. I think you are addressing me. So I feel previous decisions, the advisor had already made clear that it would not have an impact. And in future decisions, I already have a legal opinion supporting me. So even if those 4 people are not present, we can still cast our votes. I'm questioning the validity. If it as you said, you can treat it as nothing happened. But now we don't have strong legal persuasion. Well, we already gave you the legal opinion. I've heard your views. I will consider my own risk. Ms. Claudia Mo, regarding Clause 17 reading, I have some concerns. Just now you talked about defects and inappropriateness. These are very ambiguous. And the legal advisor, thank you for your elite professional opinion. But one person's professional view is not equivalent to a LegCo ruling. I think we can, there is room for a second opinion. Well, the legal advisor has a lot of years of counsel experience, so we do have legal experts in Hong Kong. And we don't have too many people with LegCo legal experience. So at this point, we cannot suspend our work and clarify it. I would respect the legal advisor's views. If you still have questions, you are welcome to seek your own legal opinion. Chairman, Ms. Claudia Mo. Well, when you read Clause 17, it talks about future proceedings that will not be affected. It doesn't refer to previous events and how they would be affected. So you cannot say in a broad brushstroke that it includes previous proceedings. I have serious doubts about that. Ms. Claudia Mo, well, I don't have a law degree. I don't know if you have a law degree, but I would respect a legal professional who has many years of experience. So in our legal affairs division, we the most senior person is our legal advisor. You can seek out your own legal opinion, Mr. Wan Siu-kin. I'm not questioning the legal advisor's opinion. Well, we know that different judges they would have different views. What I feel strange is that there's no uniform approach. Now, the council chairman says that he will seek all the expenses, remuneration, office expenses of the 4 disqualified councillors. Well, this is a constitutional issue, and according to Clause 17 of the LegCo Ordinance, you acknowledge their qualifications, you had confirmed their votes, but now you are denying their eligibility of their actions. I see it's not uniform. You are shifting the goalposts. Well, Mr. Wan, your question can only be answered by the council chairman. Well, FC chairman, you are making a large decision, and this seems to not be in uniform. Well, I have to decide in line with the court decision. Now, if you are talking about compensate, if you are talking about their wages in arrears and well, people with LegCo experience, I think we will be acting reasonably. Well, Chairman, you have not answered me. Well, the outcomes are not the same. This affects my decision because I believe the council chairman is not speaking without reason. So why do we have such large contradictions? Are they acknowledging their status or not? Thank you, Chairman. Just now, Mr. Wan's question was, it's related to the court ruling. The court's ruling says those 4 people, since 12th of October 2016, they have lost their councillor status. That's the court's ruling. Now, of course, whether those 4 people could enjoy the councillor's privileges, there was not a ruling regarding that. But if regarding the interpretation of Basic Law Article 104, it says that if the oath was invalid, then they could not take up the relevant posts, and they could not exercise the relevant powers and enjoy the relevant privileges. So, if you're talking about claims against their wages and so on, it is referring to that article. And as Chairman mentioned, there would be a special meeting convened to decide whether their wages should be, whether there should be claims against their wages. Well, at the time, if they were still councillors, then their votes, they were exercising their powers. But currently, since there is a ruling, then this is the post-fact ruling. So these are the facts, and according to the interpretation of law, there wasn't a valid oath, and so this is the court's ruling. But they already took some actions, and now we have a court ruling. We need to examine whether it had affected the validity of LegCo proceedings. So these are 2 separate issues. One is talking about a council exercising their powers, and now they have been ruled that their qualifications have been that they have been disqualified. So there are 2 separate issues. Well, you cannot ask continuously. We need to have other people their turn. We have Mr. Alvin Young, Tan Jixun. Alvin Young. Chairman, I understand that the legal advisor is a professional and they are loyal to their posts, but I'd like to ask the legal advisor, in their term, have they dealt with a similar issue? Do we have a similar case that can be applied in this situation? Legal advisor? If you're talking about this situation, we have not had any precedent. So similarly, I believe the courts have not do not have any authority interpretation on Clause 17 of the LegCo Ordinance. Well, I hope this is not going to be a legal conversation. I cannot allow that, because we'd like you to understand we're already stepping out of bounds. We're not doing FC work. Well, are you questioning my line of questions? Well, yes, because I'm chairman. Are you saying that? Are you challenging? Are you saying that my line of questioning is challenging your authority? Can you point out which rule or procedure does not allow Alvin Young to ask questions? Well, our meeting should be dealing with an agenda. I am exercising discretion. Does that mean we need to thank you? Well, you should not step out of bounds. Our legal advisor can only answer according to her experience. If you're posing hypothetical questions and if you are trying to depose a witness, that is not appropriate. Okay, please continue. I don't want to argue with you. Please continue. Can the legal advisor confirm you don't have high court cases that have interpreted clause 17 bracket 2? You can answer yes or no. Ms. Starry Lee? I refer to Ms. Starry Lee. I asked her name to be put on the list. You don't have to get worked up. Hang on. Ms. Alvin Young, the legal advisor, said she would not answer your question. I'm not finished. Then you can ask other questions. She says she's not the appropriate person to answer that question. I haven't even asked, Chairman. I am impatient. We are burning time here. You need to excuse me. We have 9 items. Well, the legal advisor would also agree that if we don't have any authority case interpreting clause 17 bracket 2, then the legal advisor she only expressed her personal view because there was no case authority. I think you would agree. Is that right, legal advisor? Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I said I gave my elaboration on the interpretation of 17 bracket 2. The different lawyers will have different readings. So if you have a different view, the resolution, there is another resolution method. If we cannot resolve legal issues in LegCo, so that's all I can add. That's good. I just want to confirm one point. I have no intention to put the legal advisor in a difficult position. I said that she's very professional, but given that if we don't have any precedent colleagues, I hope you can exercise restraint. Well, if we're so agitated, let's adjourn for 10 minutes.